All right, it's that time of the week again. Nintendo news. Me choosing my favorite stories of the week and pretty much running through them as quickly as possible. This week we've got 10 stories for you all. Everything from Nintendo, of course, going back to court, one of their favorite things to do, through to speedrunners taking on Breath of the Wild on Switch 2, and free DLCs that you should be very excited about. If you do enjoy this video today, do me a favor and subscribe. It helps out the channel a huge amount, especially a new series like this. It's only the second video I've done for it. So please, if you enjoy it, show that support. And yeah, let's get into the news. All right, so the first story, Nintendo, our good friends, are going back to court because they love a day in court. You don't mess with the big three, especially Nintendo. They are notorious for going into legal battles, and they have the bank account to keep you there for months or even years on end. This time it's the accessory maker Genki. I think this was an idiotic move. Basically, they showed off unofficial Switch 2 mockups at CES earlier this year. They basically jumped the gun on Nintendo's own reveal, and yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but whoever thought this idea up should be canned immediately, frankly. You're putting the company at risk in a really serious way. The lawsuit's got a few parts to it as well. It claims Genki used Nintendo's trademark to promote its products. Of course it did, just a little bit too early. The CEO is accused of misleading fans, showing 3D printed models and suggesting they actually had access to a real Switch 2. Nintendo also stated that Genki falsely claimed compatibility, which wouldn't be possible without a legal early access to the console. I think there's something deeper here around this illegal element of the case. Outside of that as well, they even point to a self-made direct from Genki that aired just hours after Nintendo's own event, piggybacking off the attention of the audience. Look, that part I don't think they've got much of a case on. They announced this direct like 3 months ago. You're going to get either people love it, people hate it, or people mimic it. And of course, people that want to sell products are going to build on the back of this wave on day one of the Switch 2 being announced. That said, though, apart from that bullet point, my thoughts here, Genki have clearly overstepped. I think it was an idiotic move again. I think you're putting your company at risk for really what was either a miscalculated flex or a marketing stunt. And yeah, I get trying to piggyback off Nintendo's hype, but it was never going to end well. And well, this just kind of proves that, I guess. The funny thing is as well, I don't think it really paid off for Genki because I remember the talk around the Switch 2 mockups. I can't tell you what one of their accessories actually looks like. So yeah, Genki, I hope the company can make it through this because this could be a long road ahead, or at least a massive fine. And for what I presume is a small manufacturer, it could be very trying for the staff members that do currently occupy your offices, your warehouses, and your manufacturing line. So I guess good luck. Wouldn't want to be here. All right, so it seems that Ubisoft is potentially teasing more games. This is, of course, a rumor, this one, but basically we know that Ubisoft have confirmed that Star Wars Outlaws is coming to the Switch 2 on September 4th, 2025. There was a PEGI rating leak briefly listed for Assassin's Creed Shadows for the Switch 2. But yeah, obviously all suggesting more Ubisoft titles may be on the way, and that would not surprise anyone. But now a social media post from Ubisoft Brazil asking the question, what games do you want to see on the Switch 2? It featured images of Rainbow Six Siege and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Basically, it sparked speculation about their potential Switch 2 release as well. I'd love to see both of them. Assassin's Creed Mirage is a kind of throwback to the OG Assassin's Creed, a much smaller location, kind of stripped back mechanics. I really enjoyed that game, and I'd love to see Rainbow Six Siege. I think it'd be a perfect fit, honestly. I'd love to play it handheld, but also with the new mouse functionality, it could be a really special way to kind of get in there and hopefully dominate a few players online. Then Nintendo have announced that 12 existing Switch games will receive free upgrades to enhance their performance playability on the Switch 2. Now, I was always a little bit upset about the concept of Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild having paid upgrades. I don't think we should be paying for, increased frames per second or resolution. I think it should just be, this is for free because this is really what the game was intended to be. They're not really adding anything new except for Zelda notes, and God knows I don't want that anyway, personally. But some of the titles included, there's a few weird ones, a few that make sense. So yeah, it includes things like ARMS, Captain Toad, a Treasure Tracker, Clubhouse Games. Clubhouse Games is obviously for the new game share feature that they've announced. Then we will see titles such as Mario Odyssey, Link's Awakening, and Super Mario Brothers as well. So I think a good selection. I wouldn't say any of them are necessarily
required, if I'm being honest. I think upgrades would be better for the third-party library. Generally, Nintendo, their games perform well. The only one that does stand out to me as being absolutely required is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. God knows that game needs an upgrade. So that will be a good one for the fans of that out there, because they've been through a hell of a lot in regards to crappy performance. All right, so first of all, we had the whole controversy around game keycards, and I totally get it. As someone that used to be a massive physical collector, it is incredibly disappointing. I think the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2, they were the best ways to collect physical, and now that is not so much the case. But I think even worse is we've now seen our first code in a box physical game listing, and that is no surprise here. It comes from EA, and that is Split Fiction. I imagine we're going to see the same thing for EA Madden and FC potentially as well. It seems they just want the box on the shelf. I think it should be one or the other with this system. If you've got game keycard, you can do that. We need to get rid of this code in a box situation, because it is just a little bit absurd. It just, understandably so, it's raising concerns amongst collectors, and I don't know, it's not pointing to a pretty future for that physical industry. It seems we'll be relying on limited run production companies, and even they seem to be, for me at least, going the wrong way recently. I was quite heavily into like limited run games back when it first started, and I think once again kind of greed is starting to take over that part of the industry. There's still a few good ones out there. I Am 8-Bit, I know that Lost in Cult are starting their own physical line. I've got a huge amount of faith in those particular companies. But yeah, the industry is changing, unfortunately, and I think that is not gonna sit well with a lot of people out there. All right, Cyberpunk 2077 on Switch 2 has been touted as the best handheld experience by CD Projekt Red. They do claim that Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition offers the best handheld experience on Switch 2. That's great news to hear. I played it briefly on the Steam Deck. It definitely struggles, but right now it's going to be running at 1080p in docked mode, 720p in the handheld, and they are utilizing DLSS and VRR for smooth performance. It also then includes all updates, as well as the Phantom Liberty expansion. So yeah, this is a massive technical achievement for the platform, in my opinion. And the best thing about this is it's a massive game, yet they're managing to put it all on a cartridge. It's one of the few third-party releases that's not going to be a game keycard. So I'm hoping fans out there do go and support it. It's also priced really reasonably. I think it's $60 in the US. That's really good when you consider the base game and expansion is in here. When this Ultimate Edition first released on PlayStation, it was up at $100, so really fair pricing. If you haven't played it, fantastic game. And again, please support CD Projekt Red's practices. You know, the game was broken at launch, do remember that. They've spent years fixing it up. Now they are standing by physical collectors. They just have the right attitude. They deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to be supported. All right, then Atlas revealed a RAIDOU Remastered's performance on the Switch 2, and I've got to say I'm a little bit disappointed with this. RAIDOU Remastered will be running at 1080p resolution and 60 frames per second on Switch 2, both docked and handheld. In contrast, on the original Switch, the game will run at 720p, around 30 FPS in handheld, though it will mirror the Switch 2 docked. This is really interesting because there is an upgrade path from the original Switch version to the Switch 2 version, but I really thought we were going to see 4K support for that resolution docked. I presume that was going to be... I didn't even question this, honestly. I thought all games would just simply be 4K, but it seems that is not the case. Now, this game, to give you an idea, is, of course, 4K on PS5 and Series X. It is 1080p, but 30 to 60 frames per second on PS4, so it suggests Switch 2 is obviously above that PS4 performance, but the Series S is going to be 60 FPS and a 1440p resolution. So it is actually outperforming the Switch 2. So whether this is just a hastily put together, let's call it port over to the new hardware, or is this a picture, I guess, of what's going to be to come from a lot of releases? All right, so we were all very excited to see that the Switch 2's 256 gig internal storage was a sizable increase over the original system. That said, though, it seems from news that's being released, it's only going to accommodate a few AAA games. Some of the titles that have been announced are exceeding 70 gig in size, Split Fiction being the main one. Cyberpunk 2077 is over 60. Hitman World of Assassinations, is it? Also over 60. So, yeah, definitely interesting to see. You're definitely going to need to be purchasing one of those micro SD express cards if you do intend to pick up any of these third-party titles, because realistically, from the list that's been displayed so far, you're getting maybe 3-4 games on that memory before it is completely full, and these are big download sizes, so it's going to be interesting to see how the new functionality is with the hardware. Bit of disappointing but quick news then. The Astral Chain director and Nier Automata designer has announced he is leaving PlatinumGames. He's actually starting a new game studio, EOD. Really excited to see what he does there. But of course, these two games, Nier Automata, a masterpiece, Astral Chain, honestly, not far off. I still am surprised to this day that game's not received a sequel. I was quietly kind of hoping we would see it at the Switch 2 Direct. Now, alas, that was not the case. But yeah, he plans to establish this new development company. So hopefully, we'll see whatever those titles are on the Switch 2. I'll be very excited to see the reveals. But hopefully, PlatinumGames have good people in mind ready to take these seats, because that is some serious skill and ability that is, unfortunately, departing the company. All right, so then, Sea of Stars fans, Throes of the Watchmaker, the DLC, the release date has been announced. Now, this expansion offers an additional 8-hour adventure. It's going to feature new characters, new classes, new worlds, new puzzles, new enemies. It is massive, and the trailer looks really special. Most impressively, though, this is actually a free DLC, and they did release one back last year, which I actually did do a sponsored video on transparently, but basically that added the option for free-player couch co-op. The Dawn of Equinox update, that was called. They also added in some quality of life improvements, funnily enough, just ways they changed the intro, the training, kind of how it all felt as you went through the experience. But I'm really excited for this. The developers have said it is basically the farewell letter to the game, so it really just concludes its post-launch content, and I can't wait to see what this studio does next. First, The Messenger, which was a masterpiece, then Sea of Stars, one of the best RPGs we've played in a long time. So yeah, roll on Throes of the Watchmaker. Please go and support it if you do have the game. Definitely deserves the love, and respect against the developers. It is nice. When you get so much bad news at the time, it is nice to see a developer just being like, you know what, here's something for free. Thank you for the support. And I hope they know that as fans, we appreciate them too. All right, the final bit of news, a little bit of fun on this though, but I did enjoy watching the video. A speedrunner in Japan has completed Breath of the Wild on the Switch 2 in under 10 minutes. They were given a 15-minute window to play the game, and they did it in just 7 minutes. Now, I'm going to butcher the name. Ikebos completed the run, but there is a video, which I will link down below, and it's really cool to see, honestly, because one thing I will say from watching the footage is it looks incredibly crispy, the footage, the picture quality of the game, but also the performance looks just rock solid. So yeah, basically there was a preloaded save near Hyrule Castle for the setup of the event, so it wasn't the complete speedrun. It was obviously a slight portion into the experience, hence the 7 minutes, but my understanding is typically he can do it in 10 anyway, so it wouldn't take him long to get to that point. But yeah, ton of techniques used, tons of glitches exploited. It seems that all of these things are basically carrying over to that new hardware. And yeah, those are the stories that stood out to me this week. I wouldn't say it was a light week, but definitely a mix of good, bad, and just plain horrible news. Let's face it, from code in a box to developers leaving studios. There's been mass layoffs again in the industry. It's been one of those weeks, I guess. Nintendo as well, I've been releasing pricing for the software, the Switch 2. I will be doing a separate video on that because I think it deserves to have a dedicated conversation around it. But yeah, I'm still very excited for the Switch 2. I'm just, my head's all over the place right now with the things that are coming out, you know, cost of upgrade patches and things like RAIDOU only performing at 1080p, not 4K. I guess it's exceeding my expectations in some ways and then kind of missing the mark in others. So I'm just curious to see what happens come release day. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers all.